and welcome. I'm Jennifer at HopefulHomemaker.com, and I'm thrilled that you are joining me for the Lone Star Christmas Tree Skirt Sew Along. I love making Lone Stars, and I hope that after this project you'll be able to say the same. Today I just wanted to pop in for a minute and share a quick video about fabric and show you the fabric that I've chosen to use for my tree skirt. So these are the fabrics I've selected to use for my own tree skirt. A number of the prints, several of them actually, come from the collection, Moda collection called Little Tree. I'd kind of been eyeing it and wasn't sure what I'd use it for, and I've decided to incorporate some of them into my tree skirt. At first I was looking at using this fun text print as my background fabric because I thought it would be so fun to have the text going across. And then I realized that because of the way we cut the background fabric in order to save and keep and not have bias be on the outside edge of it, I'm going to have some sections that would go this direction and some sections where the text would be going a different direction. So I decided that at least for this skirt, a lot of times that doesn't bother me in Lone Stars, but for my tree skirt I think I wanted it to be the same. So you could do this with a directional print for your background, but if you have a problem with having two different directions on that directional print, you will need to get twice as much background fabric and be prepared to have a couple triangles for scraps. So anyway, I think this might be my binding instead. So after making that change of decision, I think I'm going to use this gorgeous red mistletoe print for the background fabric. I'm gonna go with something red just for fun. And this is my selection. I've added in a fun gingham. I'm really excited to see how that looks in it. Put in a smaller print. I like to have a little bit of a change in scale, and one thing about that Little Tree was that there's a change in some of them, but I liked this, and it pulls in a little bit of red and green. I threw in a green plaid of my own, and so I think this is what I'm going to be using. Now my plan at this point in time is to have this be, the stripe be at the center and the black bee at the outer tips of my star. I always play with it a little after I have my diamonds put together, but one thing to remember about whatever fabric you choose to have at the very center of your star, because it's a tree skirt, part of that's going to be cut out to make the circle that will go around the tree. So you might not want your very favorite fabric there unless you're not really worried about it. But this, at this point in time, I think is what I'm going to be doing for mine, and I will probably use the fun text that I was excited about for the binding instead. Now, a couple of words just about choosing fabrics. I'm going with more of a black and white, and so my fabrics here are very light, dark, light, dark. Not all fabrics read that way. You may want to take a photo of your selection and then change it to a black and white so that you can get an idea of how the value will work in your project, but there really is no right or wrong. So I'd like to show you a couple of other tree skirts that we've got. So this is the first one that I made. This is the one that you see pictured in your pattern, and it goes from a green to a darker green to a red that's got a busier pattern, and then just a couple of stripes, and then another green. So one of the things that I enjoy doing is it doesn't bother me at all to use different hues of the same color over and over again. This print, which was kind of my feature print, has a lot of different versions of green in it, and I decided to run with that, and so that's why I used one that picked up the olive but also the darker. I did the same thing with the red. This is a gorgeous red, but it has some bright pink in it, and so I used that to help choose this Allison Glass print that is both the pink and the red. I really believe that in a Lone Star quilt there is no right or wrong, and it really doesn't make a difference. Here are a couple of other stars I've made in the past just for you to peek at. This is an example of a star that is completely made of just pinks with the orange or purples, I guess you could say. But they move pretty well together in spite of there not being a lot of different variety in the star itself. You could do this with reds, you could do this with greens, you could do this with any one color if you have a particular color that you really like in your Christmas decor. This is another star that I really love. Sorry about my bulk here. But this star is another one in the same quilt that's really fun. This is all done in blues, and you can see that they work beautifully together because there is just enough of a change that you can see the stars that moves around. This print here is a print that has some other pattern in it and some big flowers in it. It totally works in this star anyway, and one of the reasons it works so well is because the fabrics that I used nearby it read as more solid, and so this doesn't become too distracting or too much for the star. This is one of my favorites, and so I think this is a reminder that you can use any one color and do it however you want. Speaking of one color, also in my indigo star, oops, and it's a bigger star. This is from my Mod Lone Star pattern. But you can see in this quilt, not only do the colors not vary a ton, but they're all from the same collection, from the Alison Glass Batik collection. And so the patterns are very similar in scale and in everything, and yet they totally work. It was fun to explore the very subtle changes in the blues in this star. Now, it doesn't have the same type of contrast that, for instance, this one has, but there's no right or wrong. It's beautiful in a totally different way because you just see blue and it changes a little bit as you look through it. So I would emphasize to you that as you select your fabrics, find something that you love. Find a lineup of fabrics and prints that you really love, but don't be afraid to do something that maybe you think others might not choose. Be willing to do whatever you want. Feel free to choose different types of the same color. Or you can do something completely different, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to be just doing something basic like this with mine. I'm really excited about it. Part of me is considering actually tossing a red in there in the very center to get a little red at the center of it, since this red would never be near the background, but I'm not sure about that yet. So we may have some surprises in what I end up doing. But at this point in time, this is my selection, and I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited to see all of your fabric choices. I think they're going to be great. And I just would like to emphasize that there's really no right or wrong. So pull from your stash, grab whatever you might want to get. This will work great with anything. I'm excited for us to get started next week. With that, I wish you luck choosing your fabrics for your Lone Star Tree skirt. I would just remind you that there are no bad choices, and there's no bad decision for color placement in a Lone Star quilt. We will be back here again next Monday, October 7th, to begin the sew along officially. And so if you haven't got a pattern yet, there is a link in the post below where you can go to my Etsy shop and purchase that and get started choosing your fabrics. I'm excited for us to get started with cutting and sewing next week. Thanks again.